you like electronic music? It's all around us today, like the oxygen in the air we breathe, from the top of the pops to the oddest sounds of the underground. But from where and when did it originate? 1980s England? What about 1970s Germany? Could it be 1960s America? 1950s Canada, perhaps? Surely no earlier than 1940s Egypt. And yet, here we are. If you're interested in discovering exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes, tune into SynKult every other Tuesday from 10 to midnight for a vista of electronic sound from the field's pioneers to its current cutting edge, all placed in historical and cultural context by me, your guide, DJ Victor Alls. From musique concrète to minimal wave, space rock to speed garage, acid house to ambient, you'll find it all on SynKult. Hello, and welcome to this little slice of the electromagnetic spectrum we call Freeform Portland. I'm of course DJ Victor Alls, and I'm thrilled to bring you another 2 hours of electronic music. Before getting into it, I should say that the bed music you're listening to now and will be hearing throughout the show is from Chilean-American Wunderkund's Nicholas Jar's 2015 album Pomegranates. With that taken care of, I want to take you all back to early 1970s Germany, when a generation of rebellious, long-haired, and open-minded rock musicians were struggling against their parents' generation's Nazi heritage on one hand, and American cultural imperialism on the other, in an attempt to define a new, different German identity through music. This being a bunch of young iconoclasts and experimentalists in the early 70s, it was only a matter of time before many of them began picking up synthesizers. The second Moog modular system reached Germany into the hands of a 26-year-old Florian Frick in 1970, who purchased it thanks to his affluent family for a sum of 60,000 Dutch marks, at the time the equivalent of a small house. Frick went on to found the band Popol Vuh, named after the Mayan Book of the Dead, and animated by a syncretic worldview, combining his own lapsed Marxism with New Age spirituality and a firm belief in the sacral and transcendental power of music. Though Frick later went on to denounce electronic instruments and even sold his Moog to Klaus Schulze in 1975, at first the possibilities synthesizers could open up were part of what made his mission possible. In Frick's words, quote, "For us, the Moog synthesizer is the ability to create sounds that we have never heard or have only suspected. You can make about 7 billion different sounds, and each sound represents a different feeling you might have. The music that can be made with the Moog simply encompasses the possibilities of human sensation." End quote. Frick found a kindred spirit in the young German filmmaker Werner Herzog, who he'd known since they were teenagers in the early 60s. In fact, Herzog and Frick had discovered the Popol Vuh together while browsing at the Munich University Library, and Herzog used passages from the text in his 1971 film, Fata Morgana. I saw the film a few months ago, and while visually striking at points, I honestly couldn't recommend it to you. Frick and Herzog collaborated for a number of films during the 70s and 80s, contributing original music and sound design. The most famous of these is likely Popol Vuh's score for Agire, The Wrath of God in 1972, which was Herzog's breakout hit, and which makes use of Fricke's Moog, along with treated guitars, a bevy of acoustic instruments, and most notably a mellotron-like choir organ that uses pre-recorded tape loops of choir samples triggered with a keyboard and processed with analog circuitry. The result is phenomenal and has stood the test of time, almost preceding the film in cultural memory. In 2019, Pitchfork ranked it as the 20th best film score of all time. In 2008, Editions Mego released a 2-track EP containing reworkings of classic Popol Vuh themes from Herzog films by German experimental electronic artists. One of these is a reworking of Agire 1 by Florian Hecker and Russell Haswell. In the press release, Editions Mego writes, "The Haswell and Hecker remix of Aguirre 1, which you're about to hear, is, quote, possibly the first track to be played at the last rave on Earth." That was the 2008 Haswell and Hecker remix of Aguirre 1 by Popol Vuh, originally from the phenomenal 1972 Werner Herzog film Aguirre the Wrath of God. German rockers weren't the only ones branching out in the 1970s with cosmic synth noodling. What krautrock was for Germany, space rock was for France. Some listeners might be familiar with French bands like Heldon, Magma, and Red Noise, all of whom combined progressive rock instrumentations with a double helping of synthesizers and science-fictional aesthetics. Pole was another such act. The way I understand it, Pole was a loose collective of synthesists and progressive rock musicians associated with Pole Records, who operated from 1975 to 1977. Both were helmed by synthesist and marketing majordomo Paul Putti, who initially founded the label to promote the collective's two albums, both from 1975, Cottrell and Inside the Dream. Aside from Putti, the album lineups are almost entirely different, and so they sound very different. Cottrell is a winding electroacoustic soundscape laden with reversed vocals, proto-drum machine rhythms, stereo panning, and much more. Inside the Dream, on the other hand, is reminiscent of German Kosmische Musik, produced by the likes of Tangerine Dream and Ashra Tampel around the same time. Here's a cut-down version of the second track from Outside the Dream, titled Outside the Nightmare, which makes heavy use of Putti's ARP 2600 synthesizer. You heard a cut-down version of Outside the Nightmare by the short-lived French space rock collective Pole from 1975. The audience for these sorts of records was probably a mixture of art students and the very communities of avant-garde musicians who made the records. This was less true in the UK, where space rock bands like Hawkwind and Van der Graaf Generator enjoyed some significant popular reception. Hawkwind even directly cross-pollinated from science fiction, with author Michael Moorcock writing lyrics and contributing vocals to some of their most famous albums. Perhaps part of this tendency is due to the influence of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, whose otherworldly electronic music, incidental sound, and foley floated across the airwaves and television channels to infect several generations of listeners, many of whom would go on to compose music. Composer, musician, and studio engineer Daphne Oram co-founded the BBC Radiophonic Workshop in 1958. She left the following year and founded her own Oramic studio. The reasons for this was numerous, and she did leave on her own accord, but the systematic sexism at the BBC certainly didn't help. For instance, after a physician, horrified by the electronic chatter, declared that stints and the radiophonic workshop should be limited to 3 months to prevent employees from going mad, Oram was the first to be reassigned, while suspiciously her co-founder, Desmond Briscoe, was allowed to stay and actually promoted to senior studio manager. During her Oramics years, Oram still took commercial contracts to stay afloat financially. For instance, this 1969 composition by Oram and Thea Musgrave, made for the Scottish Theatre Ballet's performance of Beauty and the Beast. Pretend you are some tyke in 1969, seeing the play on stage or hearing it as a radio drama. Wouldn't you want to grow up and be an electronic music producer too? That was Beauty and the Beast Part 2 by Daphne Oram and Thea Musgrave from their 1969 ballet score. This piece and British radiophonic work like it are early examples of the studio as an instrument. As previously stated, many British electronic musicians from the late 1950s onwards grew up listening to the electronic sounds emanating from the BBC Radiophonic Workshop and splinter organizations like Daphne Oram's Aramix Studio. Therefore, the production philosophy has bled through cultural osmosis, including through the pores of broadcast media, into the more experimental segments of many British music scenes. For instance, consider the work of New Eton-based post-punk duo Eyeless and Gaza and their sophomore album, Photographs as Memories, from 1981. I've long been interested in the tiny, freeform, studio's instrument soundscapes that many boundary-pushing musicians of the era snuck into albums that are otherwise beaten back into some semblance of pop and the song. Think Swell Maps' Robot Factory, Jean-Michel Jarre's Ethnicolored 2, Brian Eno's Spirits Drifting, and Pink Floyd's On the Run. The example tonight is the short closing track from Photographs as Memories, titled Avenue with Trees, which sounds like a heavily stylized version of, well, Avenue with Trees by Eyeless and Gaza from their 1981 album Photographs as Memories. Of course, the studio as an instrument production practice in post-punk owes its roots as much to rock and the BBC radiophonic workshop as it does to dub reggae. One of the forces pushing dub and post-punk was English dub producer Adrian Sherwood, who became something of a central figure for post-punk with his On You Sound label from 1980 onwards. His 80s dubbed-out post-punk credits include New Age Steppers, Creation Rebel, and African Head Charge, along with close production work for Mark Stewart. Sherwood is in his 60s now, but he's still got the sauce. Next is a 2018 collaboration between him, multimedia artist Jeremy Deller, and a cave full of free-tailed bats, which Deller did a sessions with back in 2011 while on a visit to West Texas. Here's what Deller had to say about the track. Quote, "Bats love dub. It relaxes them as they roost after a busy night hunting for insects, and the echolocation clicks they make are pure electronica. It makes sense for them to work with Adrian Sherwood to make this track, and I'm glad I That was Freetail Dub by Jeremy Deller, Adrian Sherwood, and a cave full of West Texan freetail bats from 2018. I can't talk about dub without going back to the source across the Atlantic, on the island of Jamaica, but of course that would be too simple. An essential component of the Jamaican sonic continuum, from dancehall to dub to first wave ska, was American rhythm and blues. During the post-war years, many Jamaicans purchased radios for the first time, and were able to pick up American rhythm and blues stations from the Gulf Coast. Many others did seasonal farm work in the American Southwest and brought back American rhythm and blues records with them. It wasn't long before enterprising Jamaican sound system operators like Coxsone Dodd realized they could do one better and started producing and commissioning music of their own, essentially sparking Jamaica's domestic record industry in the process. But of course, the pendulum always swings the other way. Take Keith Hudson's seminal 1981 record, Playing It Cool and Playing It Right, a masterful album produced during Hudson's time living in New York by Lloyd Bulwacky Barnes. It takes nearly as much from American funk and psychedelia as Jamaican reggae and dub, simmering with Sly and the Family Stone next to Prince Buster. Here's Formula Dub from Playing It Cool and Playing It Right. You heard Formula Dub by Keith Hudson from his 1981 album, Playing It Cool and Playing It Right, produced by Lloyd Bulwacky Barnes in his New Jersey studio. At least I'm pretty sure he was operating out of New Jersey circa 81. He moved around a bit. One more slice of Jamaican sound for tonight. A 1985 dancehall classic by Anthony Redrose and produced by King Tubby titled Underneath Fat Thing. You might recognize the scat toasting at the beginning, which is memorably sampled in UK Apache and Shy FX's original Netta. Now, Underneath Fat Thing is a bit of an odd track if you look at it too closely. The lyrics are, let's just say, heavily inspired by a 1985 Yellowman track of the same name, while the production is very heavily inspired by King Jammy's Under Me Slang Tang from the same year. The likely reason is that the Jamaican record industry at the time was very competitive and rife with shameless plagiarism. Let's take a step back for a second. By the mid-80s, a wave of cheap prosumer-grade digital keyboards and drum machines were making their way onto the island. Stuff like the Casio MT40, CZ1000, Oberheim DX, and Yamaha DX100, a cut-down younger brother to the legendary Yamaha DX7. On February 23rd, 1985, King Jammy burned down the dance hall with his Casio MT40-assisted Under Me Slang Tang, with its irresistible robotic skank that redefined what reggae could be and lit a fire under the still young genre of dancehall. King Tubby knew he needed to fire back to reclaim his crown as top producer, and so shut off several singles meant to iterate on and improve upon King Jammy's sound. As for the lyrics, at the time of writing, Who Sampled claims incorrectly that Under Me Fat Ting is a cover of the 1985 Yellowman standard of the same name. Although most of the verses are completely different, the connection between the two is still undeniable. My best guess is Jammy's version was written to cash in on the success of Yellowman's version, since both have different writers and neither share any production credits. But I digress. Please enjoy Underneath Fat Thing by Anthony Redrose from 1985 and produced by King Tubby. It's a body piece in keeping with the dancehall style at the time. If you listen closely, you can hear the word dub in one of its less common original uses as Jamaican slang for
under me fatting, me under me fatting. Under me fatting, she under me, Under me fatting, me under me fatting. Under me fatting, she under me. She bunks me here, bunks me there. She bunks in and she bunks in like she just don't care. She wheel and turn till me tumble down, but I'm still dancing cause I'm having fun. This is not a shock, this is not a surprise. Me and me fat thing gone computerized to me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. No slim thing, this is my fat thing. Tell you my fat thing, she da carry the swing. The two of we together is like a dolphin. And when we go a dance, we flash bubbling to me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Hey little girl, you must have discipline. When you come to dance, you must flash bubbling. Watch Red Roses and Fiend Fat King. In the dance hall, them a carry the swing to me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. She bunks me here and bunks me there. She bunks me in the dance and almost everywhere. This is not a dream, this is not a nightmare. It seems like I'm dabbing with a Yogi Bear. Tune it. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. When you go to dance, it's like a stage show. You have men that sing, DJ and blow. Pulling me select yo. Wheel and turn it, my select yo. Come me, under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. No slim thing, this is my fat thing. Tell you my fat thing and she a carry the swing. The two of we together is like a dolphin. So when we go a dance, we flash bubbling. Chew me under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Hey little girl, you must have discipline. Watch red roses and fiend fat thing. In the dance hall, them a carry the swing. Chew me under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. She bunks me here and bunks me there. She bunks me in the dance and almost everywhere. This is not a dream, this is not a nightmare. It seems like I'm dubbing with a Yogi Bear. Chew me under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me fat thing. Under me fat thing, she under me. Under me fat thing, me under me.
You heard Under Me Fat Ting, sung by Anthony Red Rose and produced by King Tubby in 1985. With our post-punk and dub and dancehall itches scratched, let's get on to some dubstep and UK bass with a lightning round. First is Asami by Etch from his Drowned City EP, put out by Ski Mask's Elon Tapes label last September. I think my buddy Lance sent it to me a while back. That was Asami by the Brighton-based producer Etch, released last fall on his The Drowned City EP. Now for a neat piece of dubstep titled Riverwind from Ago's 2023 release Your Eyes, which cleverly samples the Roix. I'm DJ Victor Alls, and this is SynKult, coming to you from Freeform Portland, KFFP-LP Portland, KFFD-LP Beaverton, and on the web at freeformportland.org. Now, back to the program. You heard River Wind by Go from his 2023 Your Eyes EP. This next piece is IDM, not dubstep, but it's got one crooked arm in the dubstep ecosystem. Applebim is one of the original dubstep crew, a close friend and collaborator of Shackleton. Production duo Wrecked Lightship is a recent project between Applebim and another producer named Adam Winchester, who I honestly don't know much about. Their 2024 album, Antiposition, is the latest release on the boutique Los Angeles label Peak Oil that's been home to some of the most exciting projects in IDM, dub techno, and ambient this past decade. Antiposition is no exception. Writing for Pitchfork, Philip Sherburne says, quote, "The bass and drums sound like they've been designed to stand up to the gale force winds of the duo's dubwise effects." End quote. On to the title track off of Antiposition by That was Anti-Position by Wrecked Light Chip from their 2024 album, also titled Anti-Position. May as well follow up IDM with more IDM, this time from the Montreal-based duo Crackhaus, that's Crackhaus, the German way, consisting of one Scott Monteith and one Stefan Beaupre. Crackhaus was a project the two guys embarked upon in 2002 until 2005, which was mostly just, two guys being dudes. Crackhaus involved dressing up like a farmhand and charging around the stage during live gigs, shooting the shrimp over digital ping pong, drinking cheap malt liquor, trading bars and Fruity Loops, circuit bending hard and soft synths, and ultimately a fast and loose production pipeline with a punk, just get it done ethos. One product of the Crackhaus era is the album It's a Crackhaus Thing, intricately engineered to sound like the microsampled rhythms are almost falling apart. Or maybe they actually are given the production ethos. Decide for yourself with Ample Slacks from heard Ample Slacks by Crack House from their 2003 album, It's a Crack House Thing, pressed on the Stuttgart-based Oneida Records. Although the Crack House duo is from Montreal, their music hops continents, ultimately sounding like it ought to be German. Ample Slacks is UK garage blissful hiccups by way of icy Teutonic clicks and cuts. Meanwhile, other tracks on It's a Crack House Thing conjure up a ghostly crackle reminiscent of Stefan Betke's groundbreaking Pole project. This next piece from German duo Ehrmann and Klein has a similarly boundary-hopping nature, because in some ways it sounds like music from crowds who wouldn't mind being Brits. In the press release, Hermann and Klein called their single album from 2002, titled Our Noise, Plinkerpop, which Rick Anderson of AllMusic summarizes as meaning, quote, "While the beats are glitchy and the synthetic tones are often downright weird, there are also moments of genuine pop bliss that emerge from time to time, often without any warning," end quote. The effect is partially achieved through reprising British synthpop and shoegaze acts like Visage, Mazzy Star, and Slow Dive. The track Wonder from Our Noise is a loose cover of the classic shoegaze act Slow Dive's Catch the Breeze. It's up next. Wonder, I mean. That was Wonder by Ehrman and Klein, one of the many shoegaze-influenced downtempo and IDM acts of the early 2000s, alongside the likes of Ulrich Schnaus and Aerovane. I like to follow it up with a fascinating generative music project from the British industrial act Coil. Their 1995 album, Worship the Glitch, is authored as ELPH versus Coil in dubwise parlance. Who is this mysterious ELPH? Well, the Discogs description does it the most justice. Quote, "The musical equipment is as much a contributing member to any musical group as any other person. ELPH is the entity Coil uses to describe what musical compositions come out of the equipment they are sometimes unrehearsed or consciously thought of. During the studio sessions that developed into what would become Worship the Glitch, Coil became aware of random compositions emitting from their gear, and were at odds with constant accidents that were perpetually plaguing the recordings. The band called these unintentional emissions ELPH, a conceptual being that is one part physical equipment, one part celestial being, constantly playing the role of a trickster, throwing a wrench into Coil's methodology. Eventually, these accidents and mistakes were embraced by the band, and the process of misusing audio software to create intentional errors was adopted as a musical technique. The acceptance of the mistake and the use of discovered mistakes as intentional elements slowly became the drive and concepts behind the album, thus birthing the title Worship the Glitch." End quote. What follows is a series of pieces from Worship the Glitch titled The Halliwell Hammers, Part You were listening to the Hollywell Hammers, parts 1 through 3 by Coil from their 1995 album, Worship the Glitch. Next is a relatively sonically unassuming but fascinating 1995 EP by Storm Crew, titled New Level. It's jungle, the first ever Russian jungle record in fact, and in typical 90s anarcho-capitalistic Russian fashion, it contained Sprite ads and was manufactured for the Coca-Cola Company, who also owned the copyright. If you think this is insane, I encourage you to Google Pepsi Fleet and get back to me. Anyway, in original form, New Levels was released as an exclusive supplement to the third edition of Russian countercultural magazine Pyotch. Think of Pyotch as the Russian equivalent of Mondo 2000. I'm not going to lie, the production on New Level is rough, no doubt owing to a production team who'd only been operating their studio since 1994 and had mostly mastered Europop up to that point. But it's the historical legacy that counts here. Enjoy Fever 95 by Storm Crew.
The music just turns me
That was Fever 95 by DJ Groove, one track from the first ever Russian jungle release, and with a fever dream of a production story to boot, one that I'm sure is somewhat obscured by my inability to navigate Russian language internet. Big thanks to my buddy Tanya for initially sending it my way. Following it is a classic by The Prodigy, No Good Start the Dance, from their landmark of an album, Music for the Jilted Generation. My hot take about The Prodigy is that their early manic, anarchic, breakbeat hardcore and Toy Town techno EPs were glorious, the truly best of an era. Music for a Jilted Generation is still great, but it's the last really good thing they did. Even in September 1993, Generator magazine was saying their newest cuts were, quote, a little different than the Prodigy we know and love. There's still the otherworldly vibes, the classical sweeps, the pulsing beats, but it seems more controlled, less frantic, end quote. When the Prodigy eventually started hybridizing jungle with big beat and Yankee-style butt metal, I lost interest. One of the reasons I adore the track, No Good Start the Dance, is because it channels those early joyous and anarchic days, but with slightly You heard No Good Start the Dance by The Prodigy from their seminal 1994 album, Music for the Jilted Generation. Revitalizing stuff. If there was a golden era for dance-oriented electronic music, it was hands down 88 through 94 in my opinion. The secondary break loop that sounds like a pounding camera shutter is a particularly wicked touch. One final series of tracks before I go. A sizzling 1-2 punch of breakbeat hardcore throwbacks by Asen, who, while writing this episode, I learned is a professional cinematographer nowadays. Here is Play 2092 Parts 1 and 2 from Asen's 2019 Play single, which rips up and reassembles the 1983 freestyle anthem Let the Music Play by Shannon. As always, this has been me, your host, DJ Victor Alls. Please enjoy and good night.
gets chosen. So follow me, I want you thinking you were first.